Competing in 82 matchups back in the 1980s and 90s is a completely different beast compared to the 2020s. The velocity, the sheer tempo we are operating at today, it has transformed into an entirely new sport. We are praying our medical staffs can figure this out, but I need the fan base to grasp the reality of this era. LeBron James recently dropped a bombshell, claiming that surviving an 82-game schedule today is significantly tougher than in the golden era, due to the high-speed nature of modern ball. Well, Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce caught wind of that take and absolutely dismantled it. They fired back, arguing that the modern athlete is soft, undertrained, and simply not grinding the way their generation did. Folks, this generational war is getting spicy, and the evidence is controversial. Is LeBron right about the speed tax, or are KG and Pierce spot on? Before we dive into the verdict, smash that like button and subscribe if you love classic hoops debates. Now, let's look at the defense argument. Back in the 2000s, you didn't just run, you survived. You had to physically brawl through screens on every single possession. It was a combat sport. If I knew I had to crash into a Patrick Ewing or Anthony Mason pick and roll all night, that takes a massive toll on your psyche. You aren't just running, you are bracing for impact. You would leave the arena black and blue, shoulders throbbing. The physicality was undeniable. It hurt like hell. So how did guys still clock 75 games a year? Because they were tougher. The King sparked a wildfire that has split the basketball community right down the center. He insists that the workload of 82 games in the current decade creates a difficulty level the 90s never saw. His excuse? The speedometer. James claims the constant sprinting, the floor spacing, and the velocity causes these soft tissue failures, like the calf strains, plaguing the league. He contrasts this with his rookie year, noting that the primary danger used to be high ankle sprains because the paint was so congested with bodies, making landing mechanics a nightmare. Today, the floor is open, yet players are sidelined with non-contact muscle issues. But let's flip the script. In the modern era, teams switch every screen. You might run, but you aren't fighting. In the old school, switching wasn't an option. You had to chase your man over every barrier staying attached to his hip. That means defenders back then were arguably doing more times work. Today, I'm watching guys stand in the corner guarding an isolation play. Mentally and physically, the old grind was superior. To suggest today is harder, telling us these young guys can't handle 75 starts when we used to drive into a crowded lane and get hammered. Kevin Garnett and The Truth listened to LeBron's logic and essentially called it total garbage. Their counter-argument? Today's stars are cutting corners in the weight room. They aren't. Hardening their bodies for war like the previous legends. The big ticket highlighted how practice culture has shifted. Players now do light 30-minute skill sessions with trainers rather than enduring hours of full contact 5-on-5. Pierce doubled down, reminiscing about running sand dunes until he vomited, putting his body through absolute torture, just to ensure he had the stamina to survive 82 nights plus a deep playoff run. Let's analyze this. Because it isn't just get off my lawn energy from retired vets, there is real merit to what the Celtics legends are preaching, and LeBron's theory has some gaping holes. While he talks about the level of pace and the extreme speed making it a different game, we have to look at the history books. Sure, soft tissue injuries are up, and he hopes the medical teams can solve it, but is speed really the culprit? LeBron reminisces about his early days, noting that ankle injuries were the scariest threat because you were terrified of stepping on a foot in a crowded lane. That is true. Spacing was non-existent. You had 4 or 5 giants camping in the key. But here is where the logic gets tricky. LeBron's core thesis is that velocity equals injury. He is correct that the 90s were slower and more isolation heavy. However, the 1980s were a track meet. Teams like the Showtime Lakers ran nonstop. The modern game has returned to that speed with added three-point shooting, yet the durability is down. If pace alone kills hamstrings, why didn't the high-octane 1980s see this same epidemic? Those squads were sprinting just as much, if not more, yet the stars played 82 games like clockwork. It seems the durability factor has vanished. Back then, athletic freaks like Vince Carter or Tracy McGrady feared hard fouls and bad landings in a packed paint. Today, players seem to fear the sprint itself. Don't forget to comment your take below. Is the league softer or just faster? Catch you in the next video. Remember when the high ankle sprain was the ultimate career killer, that dreaded 4 to 6 week sentence? Well, that narrative has shifted. With the court spaced out and the tempo pushed to the limit, we don't see those as often. The new villain in the league, the calf strain. It is taking guys out left and right. Hopefully the medical staffs can crack the code on that soon. But before we dig in, hit that subscribe button if you love deep basketball analysis. Fans need to realize the game has evolved, but trust me, the players are dying to be on the floor. However, the numbers don't lie. LeBron James has logged a full 82-game season just one time, one single time. Compare that to his airness. Michael Jordan hit the 82-game mark 9 times. 9. And that includes 3-peat runs, where he was battling deep into June, getting 0 rest, and running it back. If speed was the real problem, Jordan should have crumbled into dust. But he didn't break because he was built like a tank. So why are we seeing so many soft tissue injuries now? It is a lack of callus. We aren't grinding every single day. I'm with the old school on this. Daily practice matters. You know the golden rule. Practice how you play. Today's guys are playing hard, but training soft. That disconnect is why your hamstring snaps. Why are hamstrings popping like popcorn? Because the body isn't shocked into game shape during the week. The overused excuse is a myth. I believe I am more ready to perform if I go hard every night. My body isn't stiff because I put in the work yesterday, it's lubricated. This is where Kevin Garnett drops the hammer. He breaks down how practice used to be a war zone 5-on-5, full speed, nonstop action. They were running drills, scrimmaging, and forcing their bodies to adapt to the brutal physicality of the league by simulating actual combat. Now, KG says guys come in for a cute 30-minute session with a personal trainer at half speed, then try to sprint a marathon for 2 hours at night. They wonder why they fall apart. That isn't preparation. That isn't building the armor needed to survive an 82-game grind. Paul Pierce chimed in with a reality check, noting they ran full court 5s for 7 hours straight in the summer. 7 hours of high-octane hoops to stay ready. Modern players think 30 minutes of cone drills is the same thing. It is not even in the same universe. If you aren't putting your chassis through the stress it needs to handle an NBA season, you are guaranteed to break down when the lights come on. So how do we inject some grit back into the league? Pierce says the answer is simple: more practice. You also have to rewrite the rulebook. Let defenders actually defend again. Forget all this freedom of movement nonsense. Bring back the holding, the grabbing, the hand checking. You cannot just let the offense walk to the rim. Everyone is dropping 50 points a night now. Sure, it is still physical, but the dynamics are weird. Why are point guards grabbing more rebounds than centers? Come on now. I get the evolution, but smash that like button if you think the stats are getting inflated. I love the product, don't get me wrong, but we have to be honest about why the game looks this way. KG circled back to a tiny detail that is causing major issues: calf raises. Trainers say players are skipping them at the end of workouts, and that laziness is directly fueling this epidemic of calf strains. That muscle is your brake and your gas pedal. It handles the stopping, starting, and exploding. If you ignore strengthening that specific area, it will snap under the pressure of an 82-game schedule. In the offseason, guys do individual work for 30 minutes with one trainer and think they are good. They truly believe that mimics a game? What are we even discussing here? You cannot replicate a war in an hour by yourself. Walking into a gym for 45 minutes creates a totally different athlete. KG and Pierce did calf raises religiously because they knew that was the insurance policy against injury. The modern generation is skipping the basics and paying the tax. The point regarding game simulation is critical. KG spoke about training his body to function when his tank was empty, imagining he had to lock down a killer like Tracy McGrady in the fourth quarter. You cannot download that endurance in a 30-minute drill. You have to push your limits so when the fatigue hits in a real match, your body doesn't shut down. He recalled Game 7, legs feeling like cement, yet still having to stop the triangle offense while his teammates were collapsing in the huddle. That is the difference. Pure exhaustion. You simply can't fake that stamina unless you're dragging yourself through the same hellfire during training sessions. And honestly, the Michael Jordan resume is the ultimate mic drop against LeBron's whole pace causes injuries theory. We are talking about a guy who snagged 6 championships in just 8 years. That is 6 deep, brutal playoff runs, 6 trips to the finals, and endless nights of high-octane warfare in May and June. Between those 2 legendary three-peats, he even suited up for the Dream Team in 1992. That is a staggering volume of basketball, and none of it was garbage time. It was all elite, bone-crushing competition. If speed and pace were truly the kryptonite for player health, MJ should have crumbled into dust, but he didn't. Why? Because Tim Grover sculpted his body to be a tank capable of handling that stress. Remember, LeBron suffered that major setback in his second year, the broken foot that sidelined him for most of the season. After a similar scare, Jordan looked at Grover and said, "Build me a suit of armor so this never happens again." And guess what? It worked. Jordan's frame withstood the punishment of 2 separate three-peats, playing virtually every single night, grinding through the postseason year after year. That isn't luck, folks. That is obsessive preparation, elite conditioning, and paying the price in sweat to ensure your engine doesn't blow out. Before we get into the modern comparisons, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe for more real talk. Now look at King James. He has played a full 82 games exactly once in his career. He has pioneered the art of load management, taking nights off to rest, yet he still battles the injury bug constantly. If the modern era is supposedly so much more physically demanding because of the pace, why is the guy who is most careful about resting still getting hurt, while the Ironman of the past who never sat down stayed fresh? It just doesn't add up. The whole soft tissue injury, defense starts to fall apart when you really put it under the microscope. LeBron claims guys are popping calves left and right because of the speed and spacing today, but legends like KG and Paul Pierce are calling bluff. They say players just aren't building their bodies right. So, who are you going to trust? The guy who played 82 games one time, or the maniacs who played full seasons on repeat while surviving training regimens designed specifically to bulletproof their limbs? KG's breakdown of their old school workouts is absolutely wild. We're talking about sprinting up sand dunes until you vomit, playing full contact 5-on-5 for hours at literal game speed, doing endless calf raises to armor plate the exact muscles that are snapping on. Today's athletes. That is intentional, targeted torture designed to build a machine that can survive the 82-game grind. What is the modern superstar doing? Specialized individual workouts for 30 minutes? That is not an equivalent exchange. Pretending that a light drill session matches the intensity of those sand dunes just exposes how far the standards for preparation have plummeted. If you agree that hard work beats talent, hit that subscribe button right now. Pierce backing up Garnett is crucial here because it proves this wasn't just KG being a freak of nature, this was the culture. Players from that era understood the assignment. You had to put in serious, ugly work during the offseason just to survive the regular season. You were playing pickup hoops for hours, pushing your red line, taking your body to the absolute limit so that when opening night arrived, you were already conditioned for war. Modern players seem to skip that step, and then they are shocked when their bodies betray them. The comment about players bending over, gasping for air in the huddle during a Game 7 is very telling. When you are deep in the playoff trenches, exhaustion is the enemy. But if you have been training at that red line intensity all year, your body knows how to operate even when the tank is empty. If you have only been doing cute individual drills, you lack that foundation, and the machine breaks down when the pressure spikes. LeBron's point about high ankle sprains being the main danger back in his rookie days is factually true, but it actually hurts his argument. He is right that the paint used to be a mosh pit where guys landed on feet, causing ankle rolls, but those are situational injuries caused by bad luck and contact, not a failure of fitness. A calf strain, however, that is directly tied to your prep work. If you aren't strengthening those lower legs, if you aren't putting your tissues through the stress they need to build resilience, they are going to snap. That isn't about pace, folks. That is about preparation. The difference in practice habits is probably the most damning evidence KG and Pierce brought to the table. If today's stars were running full speed 5-on-5 scrimmages regularly, their bodies would be conditioned for the chaos of a real game. But they aren't. They are doing solo skill work, which is fantastic for your bag of tricks, but terrible for building the engine needed to last 82 games. You cannot replace the chaos of a scrimmage with a cone drill and expect the same durability. KG's point about needing to guard a real killer in the fourth quarter when your legs are heavy is the key. How do you prep for that dogfight? You put yourself in the fire during practice. You scrimmage until your lungs burn, and then you keep playing so your body learns to function in the deep waters. If you are just vibing with a trainer, you never touch that level of fatigue while needing to execute. So when it hits you on live TV, your body isn't ready. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the game. Think these guys are actually in game shape? Think again. They are obsessing over isolated skill work, which is fantastic for highlight reels, but useless for handling the physical toll of an 82-game season. You are delusional if you think you can. Trade high-intensity scrimmages for solo drills and still win. Before we break down KG's legendary take, smash that like button. He spoke facts about needing to KG's defend a killer in the fourth quarter when you can barely breathe. That is the real test. How do you prep for that nightmare? You force yourself into the deep end during training. You scrimmage until your lungs burn, and then you play another 10 minutes so your system adapts to performing under distress. If you are just doing rep counts with a trainer, you never touch that red line fatigue where champions are made. Consequently, when crunch time hits in a real match, you will fold. Let's debunk the tempo excuse right now, because the 1980s were a track meet, yet we didn't see this injury epidemic. Teams were essentially sprinting, pushing the pace, and playing at breakneck speeds. But guess what? The stars were still clocking in for the full 82 games. If speed was the real villain, that entire decade should have been on crutches. Instead, we saw legends from the past surviving absolute torture chambers in practice and still showing up every single night deep into the playoffs. That isn't luck, folks. That is the difference between bulletproofing your body versus doing the bare minimum. Don't mistake KG and Paul Pierce for grumpy old men yelling at clouds. They are dropping serious science on how the workout culture has shifted, how it weakens player durability, and how that leads directly to the sideline stars we see today. They aren't saying the NBA is easy. They are arguing that modern athletes aren't building the armor needed to survive the war, and that is why they are falling apart. Before we dive deeper, make sure to smash that subscribe button for more Real Hoops talk. Now, take that sand dune story. It is perfect because it exposes the mindset gap. KG and the Truth talk about sprinting up literal mountains of sand until they puked, pushing their limits, so that when the fourth quarter of a Game 7 hit and their legs were heavy, they wouldn't fold. That is elite conditioning. Today's players simply aren't putting in that fees level of grit, and the injury reports prove it. LeBron wants you to believe the game is just too fast now, meaning injuries are inevitable. Garnett and Pierce are calling bluff, saying players aren't training hard enough to withstand the heat. One side is offering excuses, the other is pointing out a massive failure in preparation. When you look at the Ironman of the past playing full calendars versus today's load management era, the winner of this debate is obvious. Bron blames the pace. The Celtics legends blame the work ethic. History has the receipts, showing past icons handled equal or greater physical stress without missing a beat. This isn't about the game getting too tough. It is about standards getting too low. If you agree, hit that 2-3. Like button, subscribe to the channel, and sound off in the comments. Is LeBron right, or are KG and Pierce speaking facts?